Grab your nail-studded baseball bats and fill your bathtubs with salt water. Stranger Things Season 5 is finally here. The boys on bikes are taking their final ride through the Upside Down, and we've got a lot to discuss after the ending of Volume 1, from Vecna insights drawn straight from the Stranger Things stage play to the implications of a certain character's return. You're watching WhitneyVision, and these are our theories about the finale of Stranger Things. This is your spoiler warning! If you haven't seen episodes 1 through 4 of the final season of Stranger Things, hit pause on this video and come back once Will has felt his goosies. I'm also going to be spoiling plot points from the stage play Stranger Things: The First Shadow, which is integral to this season's plot, so be warned if you're planning on seeing it. After whacking the Wheelers and kidnapping baby Holly, who is now supposed to be 7 years old even though she's played by a 14-year-old, Vecna's newest plot to flip Hawkins upside down is in motion. But here's the thing. Vecna is not the big bad of the series, even though he's been their most deadly adversary so far. Dustin told us himself in Season 4, Vecna is the Mindflayer's 5-star general. He's high-ranking, but he's simply never had the juice to pull this off alone. In fact, I don't even think that Vecna is a completely evil person. He's morally irredeemable, sure, but based on information we learn about his past in The First Shadow, combined with the hints we've seen on screen in Volume 1 of this season, I don't believe that Henry Creel was always single-mindedly hell-bent on total world domination. And before the show ends, I think we're gonna learn that this old bag of spiky bones still has a shred of humanity way deep down in there. Let's start by talking about what we learned about Henry from The First Shadow, because there's a lot of information that helps explain a lot of questions fans have after episode 4. From Vecna's origins to Will's power set to the wall of squelch encircling Hawkins' lab in the Upside Down. In the early 1940s, Dr. Brenner's father was part of a team of US government-appointed scientists. He managed to create a technology that he thought would render their ship, the USS Eldridge, invisible to German soldiers, but it ended up going disastrously wrong. The Eldridge and her crew wound up in another world they called Dimension X, with Brenner's dad emerging as the only survivor. Before his death, Mindflayer particles were extracted from his bloodstream and later studied by his son, young Dr. Brenner. It was noted that his blood type had changed in the aftermath of his visit, a very important detail that we'll come back to in just a minute. The name of the ship itself is a small clue as to what lurks inside Dimension X, an ancient eldritch horror. This creature, the Mindflayer, the Shadow Monster, the big smoky sky spider, or whatever it's called, is far older than Henry Creel. Dr. Brenner's dad and his crew encountered it all the way back in the 40s, and I believe the Mindflayer predates even that. It may even be as old as the universe itself, trapped in a realm capable of containing its power until some idiot human started poking around, finally giving it an opening to our world. It turns out that instead of being like, well, that sucks, don't want to accidentally unleash an eldritch terror on the world, Dr. Brenner resumed his dad's experiments at a lab in Nevada. Unfortunately, his operation was compromised, and a Russian spy was able to smuggle the container with the Elder Brenner's extracted Mindflayer particles to a nearby cave. Henry Creel stumbled upon the cave and the particles while out playing one day, and the Mindflayer overtook his mind and body, just like what happened to Will all the way back in Season 1. Like Dr. Brenner Sr., Henry's blood type changed after being consumed by the Shadow Monster, and his personality did a complete 180 as well. From then on out, Henry exhibited traits of the Dark Triad and began dreaming of reshaping the material world to his own twisted whims. He started viewing himself as an apex predator, and humanity as a scourge of pests. As a perpetual outsider, he despised the forced conformity that the normal families of Hawkins represent, and his psychic powers taught him at a young age that the human race is full of liars and moralistic hypocrites. A bit ironic considering that this season, he himself is not above deception to conform the world to a singular hive mind. But before he entered that cave, I don't believe he was like this at all. I think he was probably just a regular kid like Will, still growing up and finding his place in the world. But the Mindflayer's influence is all-consuming, and once it had a chokehold on Henry, I think the darkness just swallowed him whole. That's why Henry looks so freaked out in the scene where Max recalls meeting human Henry inside his memory. That place holds an extreme amount of trauma for him, because it's the place where every fiber of his being changed irrevocably, down to his blood type. While the play doesn't show Henry's childhood prior to the cave, we have enough evidence from Will's experience with the Mindflayer to support this theory. When Will was force-fed that squidgy tube in Season 1, he had to marinate in Mindflayer particles for weeks. Despite seemingly starting to recover from his ordeal, he coughs up pieces of the Upside Down in the last scene, beginning Season 2 with visits to Dr. Owens to monitor his progression. Although he tries his hardest to stand his ground and resist the shadow monster, it overpowers him, invading every single crevice of his mind and body, altering him from the inside out. The changes Will experiences start off small and continue to get more severe as the season goes on. At first, he claims to feel out of it and develops an extreme aversion to heat. Then his personality starts to shift. He forgets the names and relationships of those closest to him, and snaps at Joyce when he tells her that he likes it cold. When Dr. Owens scans his brain, they discover that his brain has warped considerably in a matter of hours, and the other doctors believe that he'll be dead before the end of the day due to these severe physical changes. Under the Mindflayer's influence, Will even sends a team of scientists to their death, which is completely out of character for the sweet little boy who loves playing D&D with his friends and drawing pictures in crayon for his mom. Later in the play, Henry's crush, Patty Newby, the adopted sister of Samwise, tries to help Henry use his powers for good instead of evil. But the particles inside him are too all-consuming. The Mindflayer won't allow him to fully access his remaining humanity, and although he tries desperately to take Patty's advice, the shadow monster won't allow him to cease his mission. That's why I don't believe that Henry started out as a cold-blooded killer. We saw how much Will changed over the course of a few months. Imagine how much Henry probably changed over years of the Mindflayer's influence. Despite the fact that Henry is incredibly far gone, I do think that his remaining humanity will show itself before the series ends. But I'll talk more about how I think he'll do that a little later on. For now, we gotta talk about the implications of the Mindflayer's ability to change your very blood, and what that means for our Hawkins heroes. After spending so much time in the Upside Down and huffing Mindflayer glitter, Will now has a psionic connection to the hive mind in the same way that Vecna does. He's able to remotely kill several Demogorgons and can even tap into the sight receptors of Demogorgons to find different locations, like where Mr. Whatsit talked to Holly, or whether a Demogorgon is gonna attack different groups of his friends. Side note, these guys have eyes? Where? On their teeth? Even though he's only had powers for a hot minute, Will might be one of the most powerful characters on the show. Unlike 11, he didn't have to train in a lab or jump over buses in the junkyard. He simply tapped into the hive mind and used it as a battery for his newfound psionic abilities. His powers mirror Vecna's in what almost feels like a Harry Potter-Voldemort sort of bond due to their shared superblood. So why does he seem so much stronger than Elle in this scene? The answer to that question lies at the end of the first shadow, after Dr. Brenner has taken Henry to his new home at Hawkins' lab. Brenner tells Henry that the transfusions were a success, alluding to the fact that he took Henry's Mindflayer blood and put it into the bodies of the other children in the Rainbow Room. This was a huge shock to me, because I always assumed that 11 and the others were born with their powers. Maybe due to LSD exposure in the womb in MK Ultra-esque experiments. But this explains why 11 and Kali had to work harder to hone their abilities. Will mainlined his powers directly from the Upside Down, while Elle and the other experiment kids were given a transfusion of someone else's Mindflayer blood. This is pure speculation, but I also think that that's why 11 and Kali have different power sets. I think they each inherited traits of Henry's powers, but not all of his powers. There are advantages to having second-hand Mindflayer particles in your blood, however. 11 and Kali are able to access their powers whenever, wherever, but Will can only go Super Saiyan if he's in close proximity to the hive mind. Elle and Kali are also able to think independently from the Mindflayer's destructive goals. Unlike Will and Henry, they haven't been overtaken by the all-consuming monster, and their personalities haven't been altered by the change in their blood. To today's D&D nerds, it's sort of funny that Mike calls Will a sorcerer in D&D terms, because if anything, he and Vecna are more like the Warlock class. Warlocks gain their magic through a pact with a much more powerful being, in this case, the Mindflayer. To be fair to Mike though, Warlocks didn't really become a thing until the 2000s. Henry knows that a direct connection to the Mindflayer gives you a supercharged surge of energy from the hive mind. And that's why Vecna is so hell-bent on importing kids to join him in the Upside Down. One of my theories is that Vecna wants to build his own army of psionic soldiers using the same method that he used on Will, and that the Mindflayer used on him and the elder Dr. Brenner before him. If you recall, last season flashbacks revealed that Henry Creel was planning for 11 to join him in his cruel quest to purge the world of humanity. So it's possible that the 12 children Vecna kidnaps aren't human sacrifices like the 3.5 kills in Season 4, but instead are his 12 disciples. This is why it's important that his targets are impressionable children. He's seeking to make himself a loyal cult, aka the Cult of Vecna, just like his D&D namesake. Henry uses classic grooming tactics to convince Holly and the others to follow him willingly. And yes, I do think that this guy's on the you-know-what list. He's clearly learned his lesson after violently kidnapping Will and forcing him to connect with the Mindflayer. This time around, he manipulates Holly by befriending her in human form as Mr. What's-It, convincing her that he's there to protect her from monsters. He seemingly takes her to a fully refurbished version of the Creel house, gives her pretty clothes to dress up in, and makes her blueberry pancakes for breakfast. She's completely convinced that she's living in this beautiful place and that her classmates and family members will soon follow. But the reality is much darker. Holly's consciousness is stored in a deep recess of Henry's memories, while her physical body is hooked up to the Mindflayer's evil tubey thingies. That house only exists in Henry's memories. When Will taps into the hive mind, he sees Vecna's plan for the children, which involves hooking them up to 12 different stakes in the Upside Down. Will draws his vision for the gang, and the final result features several interesting details. For starters, the 12 children are placed on stakes in a circular shape, almost like the face of a clock. We know that the walls of Dimension X form a giant circle around Hawkins' lab, and I believe that these kiddos will be placed strategically inside of it. I think that Vecna is implementing this setup for his disciples specifically to help the Mindflayer escape into the right side up. Once these kids are fully saturated in Mindflayer particles and possess their full powers, Vecna will utilize their combined psionic strength to tear a hole between realities. And that's where the second detail of Will's drawing comes into play. The image he draws looks an awful lot like the Einstein-Rosen bridge that Mr. Clark teaches his students about this season. In the 1930s, scientists Albert Einstein and Nathan Rosen proposed a theoretical tunnel through space-time that would allow a person to travel across different dimensional planes, and theoretically across time itself. In real life, Einstein-Rosen bridges, aka wormholes, are theoretically too unstable to travel through and would collapse instantly, even for something moving at the speed of light. But in Stranger Things, an unstable wormhole is exactly what the Mindflayer needs to free itself from the confines of the Upside Down. Once Vecna sets up the building blocks for his interdimensional bridge, I believe that the kids stationed at the 12 positions of the clock will be used to activate the bridge, allowing the Mindflayer to enter the right side up with ease. It's not a coincidence that the penultimate episode is called The Bridge, after all. Of course, the bridge won't only be useful for the bad guys. I have a hunch that the boys on bikes are going to use it to their advantage too. But I don't think that they'll solely use it to go back and forth between worlds. They've already got that on lock. I think that the Hawkins gang is going to use the bridge to time travel. We've seen time travel hints all over Volume 1, from Robin's Back to the Future references, to Holly's favorite book, to Mr. Clark's science class, to having Sarah Connor cameo as Dr. K. And I really do have faith in their scientific abilities. These kids built a fully functional sensory deprivation tank with a blow-up pool and some gym salt when they were only 12 years old. They've been able to defy almost every law of physics the world has thrown their way. If anyone can find a way to stabilize a wormhole long enough to save the world, it's the party. Plus, I love the idea of the Duffer Brothers giving us a gruesome total party kill with memorable but temporary deaths at the hands of Vecna. Sure, it's a little Avengers Infinity War-y, but the X-Men had a similar mass death and resurrection in the 80s, so I think that it's fair game. But all I want for Christmas is a bloodbath, so I might be biased. The last detail of Will's drawing is fairly obvious to any longtime fan of the show. It looks an awful lot like the shape of the giant shadow spider that Will has been doodling since Season 1, which I believe solidifies my theory that Vecna isn't the main villain of this story. The Mindflayer is. Vecna's desires are purely propelled by the shadow monster's influences, and the endgame has always been to help it penetrate the border separating the two dimensions. Vecna wants the Mindflayer to enslave the human race because that's what the Mindflayer wants, not because it's his original idea. And if Vecna isn't the main villain, that means that the boys on bikes might just be able to stop him. Holly the Heroic has been teed up to cast Dimension Door, so she might do so by redirecting Vecna's bridge. Max can help her pinpoint a time because she spent the better part of a year exploring Henry's past. Who knows what formative moments she's witnessed? In the same way that Elle was able to tap into Billy's memories to remind him of his humanity at the end of Season 3, I predict that Max and Holly will find a way to do the same. With their help, the party could use time travel to go back to the 1950s and stop Henry from finding those particles in the first place, or to visit him in his teenage years before the murder of his mother and sister. Maybe they could even give him an advantage on a willpower saving throw against the Mindflayer, perhaps with his own Kate Bush equivalent? Maybe a song from Oklahoma? But even if Vecna and the Mindflayer are beaten, I don't think that the world of Stranger Things will be tied up in a neat little bow. I don't know if you've noticed, but in Kali's reveal scene, she's hooked up to a bunch of blood bags. Now, this could be just to keep her alive, but knowing the US government's repeated attempts at weaponizing the Upside Down, I wouldn't be surprised if they're actually drawing blood from Kali and that some of it will be used to mutate a new round of psionic soldiers. But that's just me thinking up plot hooks for the next spin-off Netflix will undoubtedly order one day in the future. These are my theories on the final season of Stranger Things, but I want to know what you guys think in the comments. Oh, and also, I think Nancy and Steve are endgame. Don't argue with me. Bye! I'm Scarlet Wit, and you're watching WhitneyVision.